The Hustleshare podcast is sponsored by OneCFO, the Philippines' leading fractional CFO services provider for startups, scale-ups, and SMEs. Experience the power of tech-enabled, efficient, affordable, and expert-led fractional CFO services. Let OneCFO handle your finances so you can focus on growing your business. Book your free CFO consultation today.
What I tell young people and the people I hire is always like, don't choose like a company or an industry or a particular job. Like choose someone like a good mentor.
Yes.
Choose someone who's going to teach you, right? Choose someone who's going to level you up and challenge you and help you acquire the skills you want, especially early in your career, right?
Welcome to Hustleshare, the podcast that features the daily grinds of unique hustlers around the world to show not our differences, but that our hustles are very much alike. Now here's your host, Ronster Baetyong.
Welcome to the latest episode of the Hustleshare podcast. I'm a fan of this startup because I've been wanting to solarize my home for the longest time because there's this utopian dream that I want. I want to be able to solarize my like a hybrid solar setup so I don't have to pay electricity. It's like always the top 3 bill in my utilities every month. And then the second thing is when I am able to do that, that's my trigger to buy my EV. So I don't have to pay for gas. That's my ultimate dream. And when I saw this startup, I've been really, really, really interested because they're democratizing how easy it should be. Apparently, I thought it was going to be super expensive to get this done. But without further ado, let's welcome to the show the co-founder of Helios, Mr. Alex Aronson. Whoop, whoop. Alex, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks, Ron. Thanks so much for having me.
All right, but I don't know if I said that correctly, but again, big fan of you guys, of what you guys do. This is a very, very, very urgent problem. You know, we have the road. I don't know what the road, the Paris Accords, or what that the thing is, but we need to get to carbon neutral or net zero. Not sure how that's going to happen with Trump being the president of the US, but we got to do something. And it starts with fossil fuels and how we consume that to get energy. And obviously, solar is going to be the key. But before I get carried away, sorry, I'm super passionate about this. Typically,
I love it. I think it's going to be a good chat.
I'm usually just asking away right away, but I have a lot of tidbits. But I'm going to shut up now because I need to ask you the $1 million question. Alex, what's your hustle?
Nice. So yeah, you primed me for this question. Mm-hmm. So I was kind of reflecting last night. I think for me, the hustle is 2 things. So one, I'm a team sports guy. So I really am passionate about building really high performance, great teams. Right? Building them, mentoring, training folks, leveling people up, and seeing how a really structured high performance team can work together. Right.
Okay.
I love it. I think it's, I mean, as founders, we don't accomplish anything without people, right? There's only so much you can do by yourself. So the people around you also make the journey really, really worthwhile, right?
Correct.
And the second would be, I guess, for me, I've built a lot of been part of a lot of consumer companies in the Philippines. So I really love when the problem you're solving, you can actually see that play out in your customers' hands, right? Like you see that wow moment. You see that, hey, everything we worked hard to build and all these problems are playing out and we're delivering something really new that people haven't experienced. So those are 2 things on my hustle, I think that give me some momentum to keep going, right? The job is not easy. You're in a complex, uncertain world, facing lots of challenges, but I think the people are along you on the way and the people that you're solving for, right? Loving your customer and understanding them and fixing things for them. I think there are things that you kind of lean back on, for me at least. Keep pushing it forward.
I love it. And again, you're touching a really, really interesting thing. For those people who you've been listening to Hustleshare for the longest time. I'm all about them team sports, bro. So again, I run my team like a varsity team. and whatnot. So we're gonna have a lot to talk about. But before I get carried away again, I need you to buckle up real quick because we're gonna have to go all the way back to understand the origin story of why you're that is your hustle. Why, of course, building Helios is the product, but why how did that start? The love for team sports, because we're gonna have to ride the Hustleshare time machine. There you go. All right, and we're all the way back. So again, you gave me a tidbit of what exactly I'm going to hammer down for this. But before we talk about team sports and whatnot, what was it like growing up? Because I'm literally looking at your LinkedIn. You studied high school in LaSalle, but I want to understand the years prior to high school and whatnot. What was it like growing up, and did you have exposure to hustling that really influenced you the way you hustle now?
Right. So actually, I didn't go to LaSalle in Manila. So I went to De La
Oh,
Salle. Yeah, it always, when I tell people I went to De La Salle, they're like, oh.
didn't have the D, didn't have De La Salle. So it's LaSalle High School. Where is this?
It's in California, just in the East Bay Area, outside of San
Bay
Francisco.
Area. Hella.
So,
there you're from the Bay Area when you say hella, by the way. That's a Bay Area thing.
Yeah, exactly.
There you go.
I'm a Bay Area Filipino kid, right? I grew up in the East Bay. Spent my childhood in Hawaii, and then kind of came back. But I think my dad was a big sports guy. He was a college football player, and so I think I was just really lucky to be exposed at a young age. Competition and being parts of teams, right? So,
what were your sports? You said team sports. What did you play?
I played everything I think, as you should when you're young, right? I played everything. I settled in. The two big loves were American football and rugby.
Ooh, there
so
you
rugby
go.
is a sport I took the farthest. I was kind of lucky. I was playing. De La Salle is a really good high school football program.
Okay.
And I got cut from the basketball team actually my freshman year. So I wanted a backup sport for the spring, and so I luckily stumbled into rugby, and that really kind of changed the whole projection of my life.
And that's more violent, honestly, because I mean, I've seen American football and how that, but rugby, you don't have the luxury of having a helmet and whatnot,
pads.
right?
And there's no pads in their body, but I think rugby is typically a little bit more because you don't have that protection on your head, right?
Right.
And with the helmet, people tend to fly in with reckless abandon, and CT is really bad. In rugby, since you're exposed, right? Technique and control is a lot more important, right? I mean, there's the big collisions for sure. But
so I love people, and I a lot of people that have been here in the podcast that have ended up becoming founders always attribute their discipline and a lot of these things that allowed me to become an entrepreneur when they had sports early in their life. I want to understand again. So you mentioned your dad is a big sports guy. What did you inherit in terms of the love for the game, whatever that game is, that got instilled in you, and then not only your dad but also your coaches, because they leave an indelible mark towards us, right? If you fall into the right coach, by the way, not everyone does. But what were those like?
Yeah, so I think, well, in general, like my dad was a great role model, right? Like he kind of instilled a lot of those like sports, mantras in me at a young age. Kind of, hard work beats talent. So when he had me on a training program early. And he kind of, opened doors for me to go compete in really like high performance teams, right? So I've been really blessed to have a lot of mentors there. Like played for some really great coaches, part of some great organizations. And I think like as a young kid, you take a lot of those lessons, the things you like. Not every team is perfect, right? Things you don't like, things you learned, and kind of, that becomes your toolkit, right? When you kind of lead your own teams and you build your own teams. So yeah, I think it's just super valuable, right? From a young age, working in a group for a common goal, having to be disciplined, having to make sacrifices, having to put something else before yourself. Like a lot of those lessons, right, are, I think, translate really well, right? Just to life and organizations and business in general, right?
Right. And I remember, I forgot which podcast it was, so my bad if I'm not properly quoting this, but I think it was Justin Khan. This is the co-founder of Twitch. He said that Again, I might be wrong, so apologies if I'm misquoting this. Kindly correct me if I'm wrong. But they said entrepreneurship, especially startups, is like an Olympic sport. You're not gonna get far ahead, and you're probably gonna fail if you're not built for this. And if you have a background in sports and team sports, and the grind and the pain and suffering that you have to go through, and obviously the output of that is discipline and the ability to work with a great team and know what it takes to win. What is obviously every team sport or every athlete wants a championship. You don't just go there just for whatever, right? Especially in a structured environment. It's like in a varsity environment, it's different. It's a whole nother level. Now, I want to understand. So you got into this. What was it like balancing your studies and being a student athlete? Because that's also a whole nother hustle to make it work.
Yeah, I think that's back to discipline, right? When you play a varsity sport in college, like there's obviously a demanding training load where you're training a couple times a day, right? You have 4 or 5 hours a day of training and more than that, right? If you really want to be good.
Yeah.
And then managing school. So I think it's just, again, like teaching like lessons on managing time, balancing, figuring out how to get things done. Honestly, I wasn't the best at school. I always tell people I majored in sport. It was passion. I was an okay student, but yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
but you did go to UC Berkeley. And there's
Yeah.
not a lot of UC Berkeley guys that I know out here. But what was that like?
That was great. I mean, beautiful campus. The rugby program was really competitive as well. It was like a Shark Tank, right? So it was 70 kids in. We had 18 freshmen every single year, and it was 70 kids competing for 15 roster spots. And so very competitive. Obviously, super high level education. I'm kind of lucky that sports kind of helped me get a great education, a great degree. Yeah, it was great. You're right in the middle of the city. The Bay Area is beautiful.
Yep.
It's a cool town, cool little town, Berkeley. I'm not sure if you've ever been, but a lot of fun.
But I've heard a lot of great stories about about Berkeley. But this is where I want to zero in. So obviously, in sports, right? There's always this crossroads. Like every person or majority of the people that go through sports would want to eventually turn pro in whatever sports they ended up. Where did business or startup come into the picture in this journey?
Right. So I guess for me, my first kind of exposure to like a really high tech innovative company was I was interning my senior year at a company. I don't know if you're aware, they're called Pandora Radio. I don't think they launched in the Philippine market, but they
Pandora, like Pandora in the US?
Pandora, yeah, radio, streaming radio.
Yeah, I know Pandora. There you go.
Yeah, so they were the pre-Spotify kind of everybody in the US had this
Pandora, Surfshark, those fellas and whatnot.
Yeah, it was the thumbs up, thumbs down music like playlist algorithm.
Yep,
right?
SoundCloud type of era there.
Yeah, so that was my first experience to kind of like Silicon Valley, the hustle there. Yeah, so I was interning there. I was working in Oakland in the head office for about a year after graduating. I was pretty much like I had a bunch of injuries throughout, university.
Yes.
I was like, do I want to keep doing this? My knees are banged up, shoulders are banged up.
Oh man.
And I got invited like as a last ditch to come play in the Philippines. So I trialed when I was in school, and then kind of right after my senior year, 6-7 months after, I got an email that basically said, "Hey, we have an Asian 5 Nations tournament coming up. We just made the top 5 teams in Asia. You can come out and trial, and if you make the top 30, right, you make the squad. We're going to play against Japan and Korea."
Wait, is this the volcanoes?
Yeah, the Philippine volcano. So I got invited after school.
Wow. All right.
So I was kind of like, it was kind of a YOLO moment, right? I spoke with my boss and I was like, "Hey, I'm thinking about taking a 2-month, unpaid leave."
Right.
And he was like, "Dude, go," right? Like a tech sales job will always be here. Silicon Valley will always be here. Go check it out. And so, yeah, that I think that really changed my life. I took a chance. I flew out to the Philippines. I absolutely loved it. Came in, played, met a bunch of Filipino heritage rugby players that grew up abroad, kind of like me. From volcanoes are spread out, right? There's Filipinos and New Zealanders and British and a few Americans, and so really cool. Where we all kind of like really cling to that identity of being for
Obviously, the most popular one,
Yeah.
Eruption.
Yeah, Eric. I played with Eric in 2013,
There
2014.
you go. Yep,
Yeah.
Eric Tai.
He's
Right
he's a
before
beast.
I became this goofball dancer that he is now.
The dancer, what is he? He's a
Right.
TikTok dancer.
Yep. Yep.
He's doing well in his thing, right? So
Mhm.
good for
So
him.
wait, again, very very popular team, the Philippine Volcanoes, and let's just call it what it is. Philippine in majority of the sports, the Philippines is always the underdog. In a lot of where we compete in. But how did that change your life? Just again, is this the first time you also went back to the Philippines and you stayed
Yeah.
put here? What was that like?
Yeah, it was my first time back to the Philippines. It changed my life because I came to this first 2 months tour.
Okay.
I played well. I ended up getting a starting spot on the team,
Mhm.
kind of luckily, and then I got invited to. There was a World Cup sevens camp.
Ooh, wow.
So like, if you stay, there's 1 month long trial for the World Cup. The
Mhm.
Philippines just made the World Cup in Russia in 2013.
Wow.
I was like, I'm already here, so I went to New Zealand and traveled for a bit, came back and did the World Cup.
Uh-huh.
It changed my life. I think what it did, it was extended my childhood when it came to sports. It's like,
Yes.
no,
you technically this is pro, or if you're not pro, you playing for the national team.
yeah, I mean, we weren't getting paid like professionals,
Right,
rugby in the
obviously.
Philippines, but at the time, a lot of my teammates had professional contracts in Japan, and so I kind of made the call after that second tour. I
Uh-huh.
missed the World Cup squad, unfortunately, by like 1 or 2 spots.
Oh no.
Like 13, 14.
Uh-huh.
But my our coach was Australian, and he was like, "Hey, I want to come keep developing you. I think you're doing great in the squad. Come play
Right.
for my club squad in Sydney." So he coached Shoot Shield team, the top level in Sydney. He was like, "Come play for my squad." And so all the savings I had from my job, I bought a flight to Australia one way. Did a
Wow.
1 year working holiday visa. Kind of just grinded it out. Got a job working in Sydney to kind of
Mhm.
pay the bills.
Right.
And with my money, I flew back and forth to the Philippines for about 18 months to compete. Right, every time we had a tournament, I would fly back and come into camp and compete. Right, so
That is
cool.
amazing. That's a grind. I have nothing but respect because again, when you represent the flag, again, it changes you, right? You're playing for flag and country, but also the grind of athletes are different, right? It's varsity grind. Yeah, okay, fine. There's school and whatnot, but being a pro, it's a totally different grind because life is now what's staring at you in the face, right?
Yeah,
But,
and I wasn't yet a pro in Sydney, right? So it was like I joined a club squad.
Mhm.
I had to find a way to survive. So the
Mhm.
goal was to try and put together some film and
right.
continue playing in the Philippines as long as I could.
Mhm.
Long story short, I ended up coming back a bunch.
Mhm.
Landed a job, my first job in Manila, working in real estate, and
Mm.
that was kind of a ticket to at least continue playing for a few years. So
Okay.
all in all, I think I represented the country for about 5 years and played in a couple SEA games, won a gold. A lot of fun.
Wow,
Really cool
that's
memory.
amazing. Right. So now the one thing that really stands out here is the startup journey. So that's why it's like, what you work? So you work with my good friends Andre, and of course my man Ben, right? In Bookie, right? So I've known these guys as OGs for the longest time. Actually, if you don't know, I'm not sure which episode, but definitely the first 5 episodes. The hustle of a CTO. That's Andre.
Oh, awesome.
Yes.
I love, so those are my boys.
Right.
We went
So-
through the ringer together. It was a cool journey at Bookie.
Absolutely. So, what was that like? So, walk me through the how you got into to Bookie, because again, Bookie, the best of the best. Just the pandemic hit. That's something we cannot control. But man, you guys were killing it. So, walk me through those years. So, when you came in 2016 September to 2018,
Yeah, so I think-
strategic head, partnerships head.
Yeah, so I was working in real estate for a couple of years. I think I initially chose real estate because every time I flew back to Manila, there was like 10 new buildings in BGC, and I was like,
Yes.
this is popping off.
Right.
And then I think I worked in tech before, so I'd seen kind of the power of the smartphone and
Right.
can capture people's attention. There's ways
Mhm.
to monetize that. There's ways to build businesses out of that and drive
Mhm.
a lot of value. And how did I meet Ben? I met Ben, I think, actually through rugby as well, through a touch
What?
thing. And he mentioned that Ben's a half British touch player. And so I think I met him through the community.
Oh.
At this point, Bookie was kind of like finding
Yeah.
a little bit of product market fit with its first version, which is just like the directory, right?
Correct.
Like
Correct.
find restaurants offline,
Yep.
get the menu,
Mhm.
get the address, all that stuff. And it was kind of like they were launching their first kind of like little monetization tools, like restaurant table bookings.
Yep.
So that's kind of then I was like, hey, I'm trying to figure out can we sell through corporate partnerships? Can we sell through some business development? So I kind of joined, and I just honestly, it was like I think maybe I was employee 10 or 11.
Wow.
A small team. We were working in a co-working space in Brixton
Okay.
on there, and
Right.
team was super small, a few devs, like one to two people, one guy handling sales, one guy handling. Yeah, amazing journey for me. Like it was really, really cool.
Okay. So I'm gonna go deep dive in this a bit. So of course, in every stop that we do as a startup founder, we learn so much, right? We acquire superpowers, and you are at the forefront of strategic partnerships and eventually sales, and that's the lifeblood of every single company. I don't care what your company is. If you cannot get cash flow or partnerships, then you're fucked. So, what? How did you evolve, and what are the things that you learned during the Bookie hustle? Because if you're employee number 10, that's literally 0 to 1 type of stuff that you're trying to build, right?
It was very much so. I think it was pretty much pre-revenue. I mean, maybe very small listed revenue. I think the booking tool was just out. The initial idea from Ben was like, hey, we can actually sell this booking and discounts tool to corporates, and that's a way for us to do our transactions. And I'm pretty sure I tried that for 3 months, like hitting up every single big, Accenture with 60,000 people and say, hey, we'll let you use this tool for free, use it as an perk. It didn't really fly. And then, so I guess in that same journey, I had to kind of figure out, where was I going to drive a lot of value? And so through partnerships, what we ended up building was Bookie Prime. I don't know if you remember what that was. That was like our deal subscription, right?
There was a Jamba Juice right across my office in Chatbot PH.
Yeah, so the 2-for-1s, right? We did 2-for-1 upgrades, and those blew up. It was a great idea. I remember one of our sales heads for food was like, people just like buy one, like people, they let this 2-for-1, this idea of like, and then so we
and Krispy Kreme.
Yeah, Krispy Kreme. It was all the milk tea places we had, right?
Yep.
Gongcha. I think we had launched like Gongcha, and the first day, like 10,000 people would buy Gongcha. It was crazy.
Wow.
Yeah, and so it was cool working with that team. It was like someone coined the phrase BOGO.
Yep.
And now you see it everywhere, buy one, get one. And those are kind of the deals that really started skyrocketing our acquisition, right? Because it was amazing because you scan the QR and it's 2-for-1. So immediately their friend downloads the app because it's like, oh, I got all these free Jamba Juices. Like I may as well. So it was a really nice little growth hack. And then my role kind of became like, how do we grow our subscribers base, right? We have a lot of people downloading the app. Our ads are pretty effective. We can market Jamba Juice 2-for-1s and Gongcha 2-for-1s. Like, how do we actually make this business, right? And so, yeah, it was pretty cool. We partnered up with a bunch of the big banks, Cash in the early days, Globe, had a basically subscription tie-in, right? Where you can So we built a bunch of those relationships that helped us distribute. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I think, like it was 10 to, I think, probably pre-pandemic, or maybe 130, 140 people.
Wow.
Built a whole like floor out in the warehouse. A bunch of different teams. So really cool experience and very bootstrapped, very scrappy.
Right.
Competing also with some of the big
incumbents. You guys kicked Zomato's ass here also to the point that they pulled out.
Zomato didn't survive. So I think that was a big proud moment for everyone in Bookie, right? We became the most food app in the country, and I guess the most downloaded, the most like engagements. Pandemic. Pandemic.
So that's what I want to find out before we take our first break. So again, I was scared. Everybody was scared shitless during the pandemic. For P&A, it was a blessing for us because all of a sudden everybody wanted to be a podcaster. That's where we grew. But I knew that wasn't the case for everybody else in the thing. So F&B was definitely dead, right? And we had to pivot. How scary was it, and what are the measures you guys do in Bookie in order to try to stay afloat?
Yeah, so I guess the pivot was was jarring for us, right? And I think so. F&B like took a big hit, but I think we were especially hit hard because all of our transactions were offline, right? They were point of sale, over the counter. So it was crushing, right? We had 4 or 5 million users. We had a few 100,000 people subscribed to Bookie Prime, paying for the deals every month, and all of a sudden, this amazing thing we built, right? Didn't have value anymore. So scary, hard, right? Hard decisions at that point where you have to make sure the ship doesn't sink, and make tough decisions around personnel. So that was a tough time. Also, Ben and his wife got very sick at the beginning of the pandemic. So there was maybe a month-long window where Ben was kind of gone. What do? We tried to salvage as much of our memberships as we could. We basically let people kind of take a 2 or 3 month hiatus. Like we won't pay, just stay with us. We'll be back. Because I guess we didn't know how long it was going to be, right?
Nobody knew. It took 2 years, damn it.
It was crazy. And then I guess out of that, a nice pivot came, and this idea of helping restaurants build their own digital delivery, digital ordering, digital payments kind of infrastructure, and kind of that's what they're still doing now, right?
Yeah, sounds good. But all right, now before we take our first break, what was it? Why did you decide to jump to Payo after that?
Yeah, it was tough. I think so. At the time, I was the kind of revenue officer, so I sat obviously in revenue.
Right. The hardest one to do during the pandemic too, by the way.
Tough. I was Ben's right hand man on like kind of the money. How do we bring money in? I kind of realized, this is a year to 2 year long tech pivot to build this. I mean, we're going from D2C into SaaS, right?
Right.
So hard pivot for sure. I got another opportunity, I think, at that time, and ultimately it was kind of a family decision, right? Where I sustained it for 9 or 10 months in the pandemic, and I couldn't take it anymore. So another
gotta do what you gotta do.
Yeah. So that's kind of how that played out, right?
And let's take our first break. And when we come back, we will now talk about the next stops of Alex and the next couple of jobs, all the way to how he started becoming solar and creating Helios. But let's talk about that more after the break. Hey hustlers, are you a busy entrepreneur juggling a ton of tasks while trying to keep your finances in check? Thinking of raising money from investors or lenders but have no idea how to start? Well, you are not alone. Managing business finances is tough. But don't worry, I got something for you. Introducing OneCFO, the leading fractional CFO service and technology provider for SMEs, startups, and scale-ups in the Philippines. Whether you need help with financial management, fundraising strategy, or scaling up operations, their team of top-tier CFOs and their game-changing CFO tech platform have got you covered. And they're legit because I've heard about them from a lot of YC startups actually that got founded in the Philippines, because they've helped a ton of VC-backed startups, scale-ups, and some of the best SMEs in the country reach new heights. OneCFO is your strategic financial partner, providing the insights, guidance, and the tools you need to make smarter decisions and drive growth. Plus, they offer personalized support tailored to what your business needs, no matter the size. And what's the best part? It won't break the bank. OneCFO services are affordable and accessible to businesses of all sizes. So if you're ready to level up your business and finances, what are you waiting for? Schedule a free CFO consultation with OneCFO. Visit onecfoph.co today. That's onecfoph.co today to get your free CFO consultation. And we're back from the break. We are still with Alex Aronson, who then told us the amazing hustle that they did all the way to, again, amazing the startup career in Bookie, one of the best teams out there. Again, bottom up. But the pandemic, again, is unforgiving and really changed the course of business. Even till now, I mean, we'll never go back to where we were, right? But after that, you did Payo and good stuff. What was the next steps that you try to do? Because eventually you'll end up working with my guy, Earl Valencia, who now has a book, by the way. So check out this book, Startup Mindsets.
Mindset.
But yeah, what was that like after Bookie? How were you navigating the tailwinds?
This was that pandemic time. I got another CRO role. Payo was essentially like a e-commerce. So they helped a bunch of like online selling. Obviously, one of the industries that blew up in the pandemic. A bunch of people would never shopped online.
Yep.
Doing it now out of necessity.
Right.
And so Paya was essentially like a third-party aggregator for logistics. So if you're an online seller, right, it's kind of a hassle if you wanted to fulfill nationwide. You got to work with like maybe 3 or 4 different companies. They have different policies, different prices. And so Paya would kind of match your parcel with the cheapest, fastest. So it was like an aggregation of the top 10 logistics companies. They would match you with the goal of delivering faster and helping you improve CFP collections. So that was interesting. It was an interesting time for e-commerce. We worked with brands like Sunny's, Sports.
Wow.
Forever 21, a bunch of brands that were selling online, right? And then a bunch of the really smart kind of drop shippers and kind of hustlers that were building their own little e-commerce businesses to help them efficiency. It went okay. I think I was there for about 11 or 12 months. I realized logistics was not really a business that I'm super passionate about.
Right.
At the end of the day, it's very thin margins and still a very, very tough business.
Yeah. It's a volume game.
Yeah. So I was at Payo during the pandemic. I flew home in the middle of the pandemic for
that's scary.
My sister's wedding. Yeah. We still had to wear face shields.
Oh, shit.
15 hours direct flight to San Francisco.
You went direct? Oh, man. Oh, man.
Yeah. So that was also an experience.
God.
And then, I think my partner at the time and I decided to kind of stay put in the Bay Area for a bit because California was starting to ease restrictions.
Yes. You can now go to In-N-Out.
Manila, I don't know if you remember that. The lockdown was intense, right? In Manila, you couldn't pass between cities. And so
dude, it was
felt
crazy.
like freedom. And, I was working remotely a little bit and I was like, why don't we just hang out for a bit? We had a series of weddings to kind of attend. And then kind of at the end of our trip, we got married. So I did some consulting there for a while, kind of while figuring out my next kind of move, right?
Okay. So how did that lead to working in Plantina? Because BNPL, this is one of the first BNPLs actually, but BNPL is tough. It is a tough game. You have a lot of formidable competitors, and if you don't have a lot of runway and a lot of merchants, it can feel like it's a war of attrition. So walk me through how you met Kevin and Earl.
Yeah, so I was living in the Bay Area at the time, kind of like in two minds about it. Like, I loved building startups in the emerging market in the Philippines. It was amazing seeing people use Bookie. It was amazing solving problems. I still wish I could be able to do that, but I'm not sure the right kind of opportunity. And also kind of applying around back home and kind of seeing things. And so I was very lucky to kind of meet Earl and Kevin. I think I saw the role. I read a lot about their mission. I think if you remember the mission of Plantina, it's an amazing mission, right?
Yeah.
Like access to higher financial services, helping the unbanked population experience their first credit, building credit scores so they can actually, build this financial, more access to basically better financial outcomes for their families, right? So amazing story, amazing impact. And I got to meet Kevin. He caught up with me because he's also from the Bay Area. Yep. And so we met funny enough, we met for Lumpia in Oakland. And he was like, hey, we're looking for a new GM or a country manager to take over our Philippine team. We've got the first bits of product out. We're trying to scale this. And that's how it started.
It was okay. This is where it got interesting because the two co-founders, Earl and Kevin, were in the US, but the product was technically built for the Philippines and they weren't there. How did those dynamics work? Because that's hard. During the pandemic, PNA, Podcast Network Asia, I had a team and I built a team of around 10 deep in Indonesia because we had operations there too. I'd never got to meet them in person. And during the pandemic, also, we got hit by a big churn of our biggest client, which was Spotify. Again, it was cool. It was hard running a team of people you've never met in a totally different culture. Now, I'm not saying it's totally different culture, but still the proximity, time difference, and everything else. How did you guys make that work? Because it seems to me that it wasn't as easy as I thought it would be.
I mean, I think mostly it was them being really flexible, right? So Earl was in New York.
Yes.
And Kevin
New York or Connecticut? I think he was in Connecticut. Yeah. Right.
Yeah, East Coast, Connecticut, it's close
Right.
enough. um,
2 hour drive, 1 hour drive.
and Kevin was in somewhere in the South Bay area.
Yep.
But yeah, they were pretty flexible a team, and to be honest, they were very hands-on founders, right? They completely adjusted and worked the graveyard shift so they could be part of the team meetings and the huddles.
Right.
They had their own domains, right? So Kevin was very much the machine learning. He ran kind of the tech. He was a machine learning guy at Google, so he was the product guy, and Earl was kind of the business strategy guy. And then I kind of was leading the day-to-day operations, making sure we were acquiring the right partnerships, looking at, hey, are we making the decisions with how we're lending, and our collections, are they moving in the right direction? So really cool experience. They're both super, super talented.
Yeah, but what was the hardest part in BNPL? Yeah, I know a lot of fintech guys, and BNPL is one of the toughest markets to crack.
Yeah, I think generally with BNPL, it's always in the emerging market. How well can you credit score? And ultimately, how deep is your war chest, right? Because your cost of capital is much more expensive than a bank.
Correct.
You have to be able to make money, and you do that either by lending very cautiously, charging very high interest rates, or
praying hard that the guy doesn't default.
Exactly. Right. So it's risky, especially when you're doing mobile lending, when it's a 5-minute sign up, and then you're giving this person probably their first experience with credit. There's people that will take advantage of. There's fraudsters, et cetera. So it's challenging. I think with BNPL, it was interesting because when I joined in 2022, it was still in a boom, right? Klarna, all of these, Atomi were all raising hundreds of millions of dollars.
Yep.
And so the directive was grow at all costs, right? Like we need to grow top line installs, transactions, GMV, like 20%. And so that was kind of my first directive. And then 2022 interest rates.
Oh my fucking God,
recession,
man.
and this blow up of the BNPL. And I'm sure you remember 22 as well. It became immediately profitability. And it's,
still like that now.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it's been exactly like that. And so we had to flip the business on its head where tough right now.
Right.
And with Plantina, the goal was to make it really was to be basically a problem solver to all the predatory lending apps out there, the 5 and 6, pawn shop that, gets people into a debt trap. And so I love that mission, but it's tough, especially when you're lending, very small amounts to continue monitoring that. So it was a lot of learnings, right? How do we scale people up the right way? How do we make good decisions on who to give credit to? But ultimately, it was hard to raise follow-on funds. They try to pivot as well into kind of like an investment brokerage.
Right.
But yeah.
Okay. Before we talk about the itch and how you started, how you thought of doing Helios, I want to just zero in on working with a couple of formidable founders in Kevin and Earl, and also from Ben and Andre and the rest of the guys, because this is what I always say. If you are, not everybody has the wherewithal to come in and to become a great founder right away. And the best way for you to learn how to become a great founder is to see how other great founders have actually done it. And these are the ones, that you've had experience hustling with, right? And if you want to become a founder, the best way to become a founder, and if that's the end goal, is to become a startup employee first, probably 1 to 10, where you can actually roll up in sleeves and bleed with them. I want to learn what you learn from these guys that really stick out from the Bookie founders and also the Plantina founders.
Yeah, they're all very, very different, right?
Okay.
Trey is kind of a serious guy, but a beast. Ida is great. His team absolutely loves him. Ben, interesting, really loves to get into the very specifics. Even when we were at 100 people, he was very deeply into product and cared exactly how screens looked. And is this button doing the right thing? All of that stuff. Kevin and Earl, I thought they ran I think with Bookie, since it was very bootstrapped and local, we iterated so much with a big team, and we kind of found little pockets of wins. With Plantina, Kevin and Earl were very structured in their thinking, right? Here's how we're using funds, here's the kill date on features. We had an amazing data stack, obviously, with so I guess I took a lot of that. I guess ultimately you learn the best ones are the best problem solvers,
right?
The ones that ultimately also can get people to buy into the mission. That's what a good founder kind of does. Like, you need people kind of on board who really care, passionate about solving the same problems, because you can't solve every problem, and you're probably not even the best to solve all of them. So yeah, I think I took little bits. I think of things that I liked, but you still have to be yourself, I think, as a founder. For
Absolutely.
me, I think also,
and
you
the best,
you have to shine as yourself. You got to be authentic. Otherwise, people, customers, they know when you're faking it, right?
totally agree. Now, when did you start feeling the itch, and how did that turn into Helios?
I think in Bookie days, I was like, I guess I've never liked really reporting to people.
Yes, I totally agreed. I like it. I don't like being told what to do, bro. So that's why I jumped very
especially
early.
It's amazing when you have a great coach who like kind of gives you the, hey, here's what success looks like, and go do it. But if you have someone looking over your shoulder asking, micromanaging, that's not a good feeling. So I kind of always knew I was maybe not the best, like just listen and follow and, don't ask questions kind of person. And it was always kind of something on my mind, like, hey, is there something I could really do? Is there something I really want to stick my teeth into? And it was always kind of like, do I have the right opportunity? And what scale do I want to do it on? What kind of problems do I want to solve? So I got very lucky actually finding Helios, because I had a very strong co-founder and team behind it, right? It was not a solo me project at all means, or even out of my own brain, right?
So how did that come about? And again, let's give flowers to your co-founder, because again, this is a team sport. And walk me through that process of it. All right, Helios, and how did you see yourself saying, hey, this is something I want to do and I want to co-found and really run with?
Yeah, so I think Plantina was kind of struggling in 2022.
Yep.
And so I was kind of just, protect my wife and family and look around. And I saw a post actually from Wavemaker. I think you might have spoken to some of the Wavemaker guys. It was obviously everybody, all the startup people are familiar with Wavemaker.
Yep.
Paul, and those guys.
Get the Paul. There you go.
Yeah. And I saw a post from Wavemaker Impact. It was pretty interesting. They were looking for like a co-founder in Manila. I read up on Wavemaker Impact. Pretty ambitious goals. We want to, found 10 companies that are going to basically erase 10% of the global carbon emissions, right? So pretty cool. They were looking for a co-founder for a build they're working on in Manila.
Yep.
And through that job post, I got introduced to
Marie and
CEO. Yeah.
Q.
Yeah. And so it was cool. We chatted for a while. Kind of figuring out kind of what he was looking for. Is this the right fit for me? And yeah, I absolutely love the story and the vision behind Helios. It ticks a couple really important boxes for me in terms of like what I'm like passionate about solving. So that's kind of how it happened. Yeah.
And that's amazing. And I remember talking to Marie and Quentin in 2023. I had them on the show as well. Because same thing, I saw Paul and the guys of Wavemaker. Shout out to them. I've also had Paul, by the way, here.
Okay.
If you want to find out his backstory, he went through the whole Hustleshare time machine. You can check it out in the show notes below. The hustle behind Wavemaker, not Wavemaker Impact. I also have the hustle behind Wavemaker Impact. So the only thing I haven't had, the only one I haven't had is Eric. One day I'll have Eric one day here. But I want to. This is what I remember profoundly during the interview. Marie and Quentin, if not during, it's somewhere in between the takes. They said, "Hey, we're actually building one in the Philippines where we're trying to venture build this startup to democratize solar." My understanding of solar in 2023 was very shallow. It's like, I thought it was just nice to have. And then
Mm.
all of a sudden, I started really in 2024. I started, holy shit, my electricity costs
Yeah, it's crazy.
during fucking the summer months. I shouldn't be paying for this shit. That sun is my friend. It shouldn't be my
Yeah.
enemy, right?
It's scary actually. If you look at the tariffs over time, sometimes sneakily it'll be 20-30% higher summer months. So
Right, right. It's
like
crazy.
monitor your bill from like January to July. It's
Mhm.
yeah. So there's not a lot of control there. So
Right. And when I found out what they were trying to do, which is to really do this, which is looking to basically democratize so that sort of BNPL, the 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 solar industry, so that homes, offices, or whoever can actually do it, and that's great. And I remember, yes, they already had a one founder back then to get this done. So walk me through this because venture builds are not easy, and if you don't, compared to a normal, say, um founder relationship where you probably know each other, this is an arranged marriage. Let's just call it what it is. But in order for it to work, I've seen so many arranged marriages that are venture builds also that are thriving right now, like Kindred. That's an
mm,
arranged marriage. One of
mm,
the best female healthcare startups now, if not the best, here in
right.
in the country. What what did you see with your co-founder that allowed you to like, hey, this is something that I can, this is somebody I can work with? Because I think it all starts with that. Because if
Mm.
it from the get go, if you don't have chemistry,
Yeah,
you have nowhere to go.
for sure. I think so. Meeting Sun Yao, right? He's a super smart guy,
Mhm,
very deep thinker. I think
mhm,
he thinks very wide about problems and
mhm.
kind of has this super clear vision of how things will play out. He's also an ex-Goldman banker, so he's sharp
Oh,
when it comes
there
to
you go.
finance. And finance is really our play in terms of
Yeah.
democratizing solar. So it's like this guy has a strong background. He's
Mhm.
actually an exited founder as well. So he had his own pre-Helios 10-year founder journey. He exited a food
Yep.
business,
I remember. Mhm.
very hard business to exit
Yep.
in China, and obviously very passionate about the problem.
Mhm.
Um, Also consumer minded. I really like the way he thought about, hey, how are we going to make this something easy for people to say yes to, right?
Correct.
Uh, so yeah, I met with him. We had a series of really nice chats, and
Mhm.
yeah.
You're a guy that again doesn't like being told to, but what attracted you to this? Because again, not an easy thing. There's a lot of customer evangelization that needs to happen. And I remember now what was my pivotal point of why this was something that I got really, really interested in. Last year, for in Podcast Network Asia, we got part of Iterative on summer 2024. We part for our paywalled podcast or paywalled audio drama platform called Serie FM.
Okay.
And during that cohort, we were the only B2C thing that we're going. Everything was either deep science, and there were
Right.
three cohort mates that I had, and they were almost identical in what we're doing. Guess what they were doing? They're doing Helios in Vietnam, Malaysia, and in Singapore. It's
Right.
like, what the fuck? What is going on? Why is Iterative betting hard on this? And then
Yeah.
I realized, again, through doing office hours with them, how big of a problem this is, not just here in the Philippines, but all over Southeast Asia. But Alex, in your own words, what is the problem here and how big is it, per
A
se?
huge problem. So, and I guess you can approach it from like a global. You can approach it from
Yep.
a regional. You can approach it actually to the individual. So obviously, globally, we need to
And the
make changes.
market is huge, by the
Yeah,
way.
we need to make changes. We need to make changes now.
Mhm.
Solar is a technology that we don't have to wait for, right? There's a lot of like climate technology and science that may be 10 years away, but solar is something you can deploy now.
Yes.
Technology is reliable. It's gotten
Mhm.
affordable. And in terms of Helios and why residential is something we're really interested in, it's a
Mhm.
huge opportunity, right? So in this net zero transition that people talk about, right, solar is going to be a huge factor of it. Um, when you look at the Philippines specifically, almost every solar developer um, focuses almost solely on commercial,
Yes.
industrial, utility scale projects. They work on these big B2B projects. So almost nobody's doing the retail consumer, innovating a lot. problem solving, packaging it in a way where it's accessible and something that makes sense for homeowners, right? Actually, talk to a lot of them. A lot of them will actually avoid residential because it's
Yes.
fragmented. It's harder to deal with logistically. You're dealing with, a
Single
$5 million
customers.
project instead of a $5 million project, right? So, I guess that's a story we kept hearing over and over again as we talked to a lot of solar companies here. But in this renewable transition, 50% of the addressable market in terms of deployable solar is going to be on residential homes, right? So nobody's solving problems for this 50% addressable market in this transition.
Yeah.
And that's what we looked at. And we're both consumer people, and we said, Philippines, one of the highest rates of electricity across Southeast Asia. So crazy fact for you, Ron, is Filipinos will pay the same rate per kilowatt hour as nearly as Singaporeans. And
What?
we're almost about the same. Other than Singapore, we're the next highest in Southeast Asia. But you think GDP per capita, income gap between Philippines and Singapore, essentially Filipinos, we get creamed, keeping our lights on our house. And if you dive deeper into it, it's the rates are volatile. So last 10 years, the rates have gone up. Like the CAGR has been around 8 to 10% every single year, depending on who your retailer is. You still have brownouts. And a scary one is we did a bunch of like home ownership cost modeling. And so for the average like home buyer or homeowner in the country, they're going to, in the first 15 to 20 years living in their property, they're going to spend 30% of their property's value paying for electricity. That's crazy, right?
I feel it. Literally. So
the economics should be a no-brainer when you think about it, right? I can get solar. It costs 3%, 5% of my home versus paying 30%, right? For something I will always have to pay every month. So
no, it does make sense. And again, I feel that crunch because again, after I sold my second company, Chatbot PH, again, I now I'm a homeowner, and that bill when it hits, because obviously, here's the thing: during the burr months, you have a choice: either you use the AC or not. Why will you not use the AC unless you're trying to get a massive migraine or just trying to die, right? Your only choice to actually get by during the months of March, April, May, to probably even June is to have the AC on, especially during the day, right? I mean, automatically you'll probably use the AC at night. The downside of having able to kind of build your dream house is that the upkeep is pretty fucking expensive.
Like, gotta maintain the house, things break down.
Oh fuck, man! So it's tough. So not like I'm happy I'm able to step up and make this through, but I'm looking at it from a line by line. I learned this also from my startup hustle. There's shit that I can actually literally eliminate out of this. Right. And again, my eureka moment is like during the iterative thing. I've heard about you guys, but that's when I fully understood that this is something that I shouldn't be paying because and looking at it. And line by line, I pay what? A good $10,000+ a year just paying electricity where I shouldn't be.
Right.
I could have probably used that to pay for my whole unit so that this thing is fucking,
if you're paying $10,000 a year US, you could already get a pretty big solar system for that amount, right?
Exactly the point.
So that's the nice thing with solar. It's one of the only renewable energy technologies that that touches the retail, right? Like hydro is a government project, like damming up big rivers, wind, all of these things, right? They're big commercial deals that take a long time. But if you own a house or you have access to your roof and it rights to that, you can supply your own power, right? You can put essentially the way I like to think about solar power is it's putting like an income generator on your roof. Right?
Yes, and then I thought it out like shit. This is something, and I went knee deep. So we can now talk about that because correct me if I'm wrong. Well, maybe my shallow research. There's technically 3 types on grid. Basically, you're tied to the grid still. When your solar system is absorbing stuff, you're not gonna consume from the grid. You're literally consuming during the day. What you have, and if you produce more than what you actually consumed, you're actually selling to the grid, and you actually offset some of those costs. Second is off grid, where you're completely not connected to the grid if you're probably in the boonies, you're in the boondocks or wherever.
Yeah, yeah,
That's what you need to
yeah.
make sure that
Yeah.
you do that. And what I really want is a hybrid,
Mhm.
where I get to store. I have my own batteries and all that. I still am tied up to the grid if I need to, but if I produce more, I can sell to the grid, right?
Yeah.
And offset. But again, I'm looking at it from a technological standpoint where shit, my next biggest line item in terms of things that I can eliminate is gas. I
Right.
don't want to pay for gas. Why should I be
Yeah.
paying for gas? Right?
It is a very, I mean, they connects very well, right? I think so. I've
Mm.
seen in other markets where solar financing starts to blend with EV financing because
Oh,
they're very connected, right? It's kind of like an ecosystem where you have,
yeah,
if you're producing your own electricity, you can use that to power what you want, right? And
exactly.
so it makes the return of electric vehicle much better. So I
Mhm.
highly recommend that. Start
Mhm.
with the system you want. You can
Mhm.
go hybrid or on grid. I think it depends on the customer, their budget, and really their goals.
Yeah.
But
Actually, that's my question. So, wait, did I name ace the three
you actually
types?
nailed it. You nailed it. Those are
Yes,
the three
I'm
options.
able to fucking. My research is correct. But those basically is can you pivot? Say for example, I start with on grid first because the batteries is basically the main cost
Mhm.
driver, and then eventually turn that into a hybrid when I can uh, afford it already.
Definitely possible. The one thing you have to make sure is that your inverters are potentially hybrid inverters. So there are different types
Mm,
of hardware. Some inverters are only good for on-grid connection.
got it.
Some are ready for hybrid. You can literally just add in a battery like a Lego piece.
Hmm.
Uh, and then for some, there's this thing called an AC coupler. We use a lot of microinverters. So
Right
that's a nice one that lets basically you convert and store AC. So
there, you
that's
go.
that's the electricity in your house. So we always tell our customers that like you do not have to start with this 10,000 US dollar system that's going to zero your bill and you have
Yep.
100% backup power with batteries. Like save now, and you can always get what you can afford, get what we can help you finance, and a monthly installment plan you can afford, and you can add on later. Right. The lifespan of the panels is 25 years. Right. They're not
Hmm.
going in. So uh, you can always approach it modularly, right?
Mm.
Start with 75% of your bill. That's already a big savings, right?
Yep.
Uh, or you can go all the way for it, right?
Yeah.
Hybrid system with 10 hours of backup power and a big EV charger, right? Solar EV.
Now, again, I don't like the way this is going because the way you're basically validating all of my things, I might just end up buying from you right after this
The
episode.
economics, I mean, you don't have to buy from me. Listen, the economics in the country are, I
Right.
mean, we chose the Philippines. The rates
Yeah.
are high and it's really volatile. So,
Mm.
um, yeah, I think that's part of the fun of Helios is, I guess, and we're dealing with two pretty
Mhm.
foreign or pretty like
Mhm.
big concepts for
Yeah.
people, right? Solar, kind of newer technology, at least in the Philippines, right? It's been
Yeah.
around for years, but in our market, less than half of 1% of homes have solar.
Wow.
Yeah,
A
we're
bunch
on
of
this.
my neighbors out here have solar. I
Yeah,
probably
depending
feel
on,
like a
I mean,
good third of them.
that's typically how it
Yeah.
goes with the solar, right?
Yeah.
Start seeing them around the neighborhood, you ask your, oh, my bill's zero. You're like, how'd you do that, right?
Right. I was like, oh,
So
I see a couple right now, right there.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
So.
kind of starts like that. So we're still in this very early adopter phase where there's skepticism. How does this work? How are
Mhm.
you sure I'm gonna get my savings?
Yep. Yep.
The damage of my home, right?
Right.
This is people's biggest investment in life, right? So
Mhm.
they need a lot of trust in what you're doing, that you know what you're doing. You need to deliver on that promise. But also we're also educating on financial concepts. Like
Absolutely.
we can actually help you break this down. You don't have to spend up front. We
Mhm.
can we can give you a very affordable installment plan,
Mhm.
low interest rates. We can tie this into something that you can actually get financing for. And so
Woo, I'm ready to sign up.
I guess in terms of our customers, like, hey, something really reliable. You
Mhm.
don't need German solar panels. You need high quality brand, uh,
Mm.
good efficiency, good warranties.
Mm.
Company, is going to be around. You need an installer that's going to take care of your house to be
Yep.
covered against any liabilities there.
Yep.
So you need some trust on you're getting this high quality system. And then
Mhm.
I guess for us, the big secret in Helios, our big mission is to make it accessible, affordable.
Mhm.
Can we help every Filipino homeowner who wants solar be able to afford it, right?
I
Because a lot
want
of
one.
people ask for it,
Mhm.
but not everyone's willing to throw down $500,000 or able to, right?
Yeah.
How many families have that in the bank
Mhm.
sitting around
Absolutely.
ready to deploy, right?
Exactly. Now, let's take our last break, and when we come back, we will now listen to me being sold to. Just kidding.
You
No,
gotta just
we're
let
gonna.
me. You gotta let us make a design for you. Yeah,
No, but again, I'm really really interested about this
I'm
because
not trying to sell you in any way. Right?
I'm already pre-sold. That's why I know the product, and I want to help you evangelize this. Whoever's listening, please buy too, like me, because again, super duper interesting. And again, this is the future, and the future is now. But let's talk about that more after the break. Hey, hustlers! Before we resume the episode, let me tell you a very quick secret. Do you guys ever wonder how we're able to consistently release episode after episode here in Hustleshare without missing a date over the past 3 years? Well, it's not just pure hustle, because I'm also running my podcast along with me running my startup full time. Now, for some of you who have listened to this podcast, you guys very well know that I created a startup that is designed to help the best podcasters in Southeast Asia to realize their full potential, which is called Podcast Network Asia. And over the past couple of years, we've achieved quite a lot in P&A, helping hundreds of podcasters create world-class episodes consistently. However, what we realize is that we are not really solving the real problem of all podcasters in the world if we're not going to productize the thing that we're very good at, which is helping podcasters solve the two main pain points of a podcaster, which is number one, nobody really likes to edit their own show. Especially if you're listening to your own voice. Just like me, I cringe a lot. Having to listen to my voice for 3 to 4 hours just to release a 1 hour episode. It's no fun. And then the other thing is that most podcasters, just like me, are absolutely clueless on how to properly grow their show, which is something that we have perfected in Podcast Network Asia. So we've decided to put this all in one product that helps any podcaster in the world create world-class shows that people will love and will continuously grow. And that's why we created Pod Machine. Pod Machine is the most affordable podcast subscription service that helps you with your podcasting needs. We've got everything from audio production, crafting designs, and marketing and growth support. So as a podcaster, you can now just focus on the thing that matters the most, creating great content for your listeners. So, if you are an existing podcaster or someone that actually wants to create their podcast now, no need to worry. You got a founder's discount by listening here on Hustleshare. So sign up now at podmachine.com. And aside from the free trial that you're going to get as a new user, I'm throwing in another one free edit as soon as you sign up for just as low as $49.99 USD a month to start creating a consistent and world-class podcast. Again, that's podmachine.com and use the code Hustleshare to get your founder discount. So if you have friends that are podcasters and if you want to have a podcast just like this, y'all know what to do. So just go and talk to you guys in Pod Machine. And we're back from the break. We are still with Aronson, who's literally on the cusp of signing me up. Okay. I love it. But here's the thing. Again, walk me through the KYC process because I remember I messaged you guys in Facebook a couple minutes after somebody called me, right?
Yeah.
And blah, blah, blah. And again, I didn't know what I wanted yet, and I also didn't have the wherewithal yet to get that done. But what are the options? You said there's a it shouldn't be as intimidating. You don't need $500,000 to be able to get there. To help prepare you to literally start your solar system.
Yeah. So the way to think about Helios's customer journey is we're kind of like a solar broker, right? And when a customer signs up, there's some things we want to understand so we can build them a really nice win, right?
Yeah.
So first one is, hey, what's your electricity consumption like in your home? So very simple solar questions like how much power do you need? How do you use your power?
Let me look at my Meralco bill.
Exactly. You can look at the split, your load, So we ask about that, and we kind of get an idea of like, hey, what types of options from the ones you mentioned. Off grid, unless you're kind of way out in the provinces, nobody's really doing that.
Yeah.
So hybrid is for kind of people who, have brownouts a lot or want backup power. So we'll kind of paint this picture of like, hey,
651 kilowatt hours.
651. Okay.
What does that mean? I don't even
your
know
bill's
what that
probably
means.
like 8 to 10,000 a month, something like that.
Yeah, I hate it. Like, why am I paying this? This should have been, something else.
Scary
Right?
thing is that in the lifespan of solar, if rates keep doing what they're doing, we actually took a conservative view of rates keep doing what they're doing, 5%, even at 5% per year, 8K bill today in 25-year lifespan of solar will actually more than triple. It'll be probably
What the actual fuck? Are you kidding
paying
me?
consumption.
No.
So that's a scary picture to look at. I'm not trying to sell.
Yeah.
Again, I'm just that's
But we're all sold.
that's
I'm
the
sold as hell. Okay.
Yeah. So back to our customers. So we build
Okay.
this picture. Like, hey, what is something that makes sense for your home, for your consumption, budget, right? Again, you don't have to go for a zero bill. And so we match you to the right system, and then we also match you to the right way to pay, right? So we started with something called the solar mortgage, which was the first of its kind in Asia, basically letting people integrate their solar financing into the purchase of their home and their mortgage. So they get mortgage level interest rates, long tenors, and super low. I mean, there is no cheaper interest rate than the securitized, collateralized, right?
Yeah.
Loan, right? So banks. We partnered up with BPI for that. It was the first one across Asia.
Wow.
Amazing economics for customers because we pay nothing down. And for some of our customers, we actually refinance them from a 9% interest rate down to 6 or 7.
Wow.
And tuck in solar, their amortization for their home goes down. So they get solar and they pay less for their house.
Wow.
And the bill goes to zero. So those are some of the wins we've been able to build for people. It's like, we've been able to actually get people like 15, 20,000 pesos back in their pocket without having to make an investment. We did the solar mortgage for the first couple of years. So we started with BPI, and then we brought on Security Bank, a couple other banks in the pipeline. And we realized, hey, not every Filipino can get a home loan for a commercial bank, right? So we need to diversify. So we've added a bunch of financing options that basically help people afford it, right? So we've got unsecured loans now, so personal loans you could use for the purpose of getting solar. We've got credit card installment plans because if you have a credit card and you want to pay in installments, right? A lot of people, right? They want to get their miles. You can swipe.
Yeah.
Put that over 36 months. And then a very exciting one that's kind of new for us and helping us address a wider set of the population is buy now, pay later. So I'm actually allowed to announce this. We launched this in March, but we just launched with Gcash. And so you can use your GGives credit limit to acquire solar for your home. Pay 0 interest for up to 24 months on your solar.
That is amazing.
Via the Gcash app. You can also apply on Billies and get a credit limit for your solar. So again, we're just trying to help people who want this afford it.
Right.
Yeah.
So, man, you should. I wouldn't be surprised.
Come in, you talk to us, and we'll say, "Hey, sir, based on what you need, here's some options for you. Here's what your monthly. What people care about is now or next month. So here's what your monthly cash looks like.
Okay.
Here's what lifetime savings looks like. So we kind of help them paint this picture, right?
Okay. So let's use my data as a sample. So again, 651.
Are we going to do a consultation?
Yeah, this is. I'm telling you, this is.
I might need to get my engineer on the horn. Now, what we typically do is we use technology. So we get from a Google pin location. Okay. We can use satellite images and make a remote design, right? Factoring in the tilts and the section of your roof. And from there, you get a pretty clear picture of what kind of harvest or energy production you get from your house. So we can do that pretty quickly.
The elephant in the room, and this is me as a breadwinner thinking, like, all right, how much will this add on or reduce from my monthly bill? Because that's my goal. I want to eliminate as much shit in my monthly bill as possible. So let's just say 651. How big should and my bill monthly for my electricity hovers at a low end 8K, at a high end probably 12,000. So I think I overshot my monthly estimates earlier. So I only pay like around 100K in electricity. But still, if I eliminate that, that's a lot of food that's a lot of steak that I can eat with that 100K, right? So,
Right.
or
Yeah.
that's a lot of investment. So, what should that look like? And what if we converted it to me getting, say, just an on grid for now, or at least what are my
Yep.
options and what are my payment installments going to be like?
Sure. So payment installments really depend how
Okay.
you want, right? So we open that discussion very like kind of like as a financial consultant, like, hey, based on what you want to do, right? If you want to go for something secured and long term, low rates, but let's start solar system. So 8K bill. If
Okay.
you want to zero that, around an 8 kilowatt net metering on grid system
Uh-huh.
should basically close to net zero your bill pretty reliably throughout the year, right?
Woo! AC all day, baby. That's
Around
what I
8
want.
kilowatt would be, it would probably be like about a 16 panel system.
Okay. I think my roof can hold up.
Yeah, a few 100,000, probably not too expensive. Few 100,000, depending on the payment method. I could pull up a calculator. I know the mortgage.
No, somebody, Anelli, who's literally stalking us right now. She said 12 panel system.
12 solar panels. I guess
Uh-huh.
372 would be kind of our premium, kind of one of our microinverter options. There are cheaper options we do. Another, for hybrid, you'd probably want in the 7 kilowatt range,
Right.
with net metering. The batteries, a lot of the solar batteries, like they're not going to give you. They typically get tied to your lighter loads. So these will be like your lights, your plug-in electrical appliances.
Right.
They get drained pretty quickly from the air conditioning units, right? So with hybrid, if you're going for zero net metering, it makes the most sense.
Uh-huh.
But I think there's no pressure to get hybrid. We kind of advise our customers, right? Like, hey, the price of solar panels is plummeted over the last 30 years to a point where it's pretty affordable to retail.
Uh-huh.
The same kind of trend is happening with batteries right now.
Right.
With the lithium-ion due to kind of EVs and so much of the work that's going on there, right? Improvements. So
Correct.
we always say this is actually a 3 to 5 year kind of window where probably it'll be a lot more affordable. The warranties will all be kind of standardized and longer. So you don't have to feel pressure to get a hybrid. It's good for people who have brownouts all the time. And like, if you're working from home and you're running your podcast and like lights go off, that messes with your business. Definitely backup power makes sense. You just have that in mind.
So I have a dystopian view of the future. And this is what...
Yeah, for our doomsday preppers, that they are the ones definitely buying hybrids, right?
Okay, here's what... Look, Taiwan is just it's a time bomb. All right? If that shit explodes, we're going to be the first draw in drawing into World War III. For sure. Right? For sure.
Located, definitely.
Right. Exactly. So once the grid goes down, because that's one of the first things that the enemies would probably fuck up, I don't want to fucking die, right? So the ultimate dystopian future type of hedge that I want is or at least a hybrid, or I can be by then that the grid is dead. Off-grid system, right? Yeah. You need a Starlink, so at least you can still communicate with people.
Right, you're still connected.
And you need an EV. Then you'll be just fine. Right?
Yeah.
You'll hold out.
You could survive. Depending on if you're in a big city or not, right?
Right.
Only with the batteries. There's so much information now on solar, right? I think there's a lot of educational information where, homeowners across the US, Europe will kind of say, here's my setup. Here's my experience, right? I've got 10 kilowatt hour battery. This gives me, X number of backup power hours and running these types of electrical loads. So I think the first step is education that, hey, this technology works. It's reliable. It's
research like how I did.
And it's an investment that's going to pay you for a long time, right? That's the important part.
Right.
So if you can make the short-term work, right, with flexibility there, I guess that's our goal. That it's an easier thing to get, right? So,
okay, last stupid question before we talk about founders and what's next for you guys. So there, I'm trying to eliminate my 8 to 10K electricity bill. If I signed up in Helios, will that turn to an 8 to 10K or probably a bigger amortization or a BNPL bill? And how long will that run for? Because basically, I'm just offsetting that cost or another cost that if I went through the installment thing. But again, down the road, it would stop, right?
Right.
Depending on how long that amortization would look like. But how what are the options like, and how
Mm,
far is it from my current bill? Because that's where in my head I can justify, like, all right, I'm just changing one thing for another thing.
right. So I guess one option, if you really want to pay less on a monthly, I'm not sure. Did you buy your house in cash? If you have a home loan,
No, I'm still paying for it. So I do have a home loan.
if you have a home loan, integrating it is by far the cheapest economically, because you're paying. What we can actually do is we can lock you in for another 5 years. We can. I'm not sure if you're out of your floating, but you can
Uh-huh.
lock in for another 5 years at 6.5 to 7%,
Uh-huh.
and pay that if you want the entire duration of your mortgage, right? So on a 5 year,
Mm.
basically on a 5 year term with those kinds of home loan interest rates, you'd probably be paying around 5,000 pesos a month, something like that, and
Not
get
bad.
7 or 8,000 pesos of savings, right? So essentially, solar is paying for itself, and then you have this extra money in your pocket.
And does
And
that
yeah,
work with any bank?
so right now for a mortgage, we work with BPI and Security Bank.
Okay.
And if you're not with them, we can help you actually transfer. Because a lot of our customers actually,
Ooh.
after their lock-in period, their rates would go up, and so we help them refinance.
Right. But the problem with the refinancing is sorry, I'm gonna go into
Oh yeah,
finance 101.
yeah,
If you refi in any type of mortgage or amortization per se that you're doing
Mm,
during the duration, let's just say it's a 10-year amortization, whatever, right? During the first 10 years, you're always paying the interest first and less capital
yeah.
until
Typically,
that
like
until that equilibrium point where towards the end you're now paying more capital than interest.
right.
Right. Is that how that's going to look like eventually?
So it restarts, but I
Mm.
think moving from a high interest rate to a low interest rate is always a good decision. It's not very common in the Philippines, but in the US, where you have a 30-year mortgage, people on average refinance their home 3-4 times during the course of a mortgage, because they're always
Right.
looking
for the best deal.
they want the best deal, right? So
Yep.
people, they say people they would sell their newborn son for a low, 50 basis points off. But in the Philippines, we help people literally move from 10% down to 7%. That's
Mhm.
huge. Like, I mean, think about that. That's for some customers, that's like, for some people, that's taking 15,000 off your mortgage, right? 20,000
Right.
pesos off your mortgage. So it's definitely worth it. It's not super easy, to be honest, in the Philippines.
Mhm.
It takes you a few months, but our team actually does that whole process for you, right? Just like a mortgage broker.
Yep. I love it.
We help you submit, we help you get approved,
Mm.
and then we build your solar in and we maintain that, right? So
Okay. Now I want to understand one last thing. You said you're a broker. Does that mean that the solar panels and the equipment that you guys put, you're also flexible? It's not in-house. How do you guys make that work?
yeah, so I guess again, flexibility and availability of options is important for us. So we supply several different types of hardware, right?
Mhm.
We're very strict on the stuff we supply, in terms of like, we only supply the tier 1 brands, those top rated ones, with kind of like the best in class, like reliability, durability, performance, those types of things. But we work with installers, and so we also sell their packages,
Mhm.
because I think price point is something also that people are sensitive with, right? So, I mean, we'll always vet the quality of hardware and the quality of installation our partners do.
Mhm.
So I guess for some systems, we will allow our installers to finance their own hardware and components. And we let our customers kind of choose. But we have
That's
a few of
amazing.
our kind of like recommended options where
Mhm.
we we go for the long warranties and some of that.
Okay. I'll go back to the weeds now and talk about product. So, sorry, that was a long ass tangent, but obviously I'm passionate about it. I love it.
Yeah, no.
But your hustle, Alex, you mentioned that it's about creating high performing teams. I want to understand how you built the Helios team that helped you around to really create this. Walk me through how that evolved, and also how your leadership style translated or probably evolved along the way as you kept doing Helios.
Yeah. So we've been lucky. We've had some really awesome people work with Helios.
Mhm.
Interestingly, like running Helios is kind of like running 3 or 4 businesses concurrently, right? We have a we have a mortgage brokerage business. We have a brokerage business that's kind of like a financial matching business.
Yep.
We have a sales and marketing business going on, and then we have the solar fulfillment business, right?
Mhm.
So we essentially act as a project manager.
Mhm.
So luckily, we have some strong leaders across the board. I'd say the culture is kind of like a big culture of like ownership and accountability on whatever your function would be.
Mhm.
But it worked with some amazing people. We have an amazing growth marketer. We had a amazing kind of head of growth that was doing also digital brokerage with
Mhm.
bank, a business called Nook. So lots of learnings there. Um, yeah. And I think ultimately with Helios, the important thing is that people collaborate
Mhm.
because all of the departments are, you touch every single department to process one customer, right?
Yeah.
For you, you saw maybe a Helios ad and clicked on a form, right? So marketing touched you and sales will help match you to the product. Our loans team will help you get approved and push you through that operations process.
Mhm.
Our engineering team will make sure your system gets fulfilled and energized to spec. And then our after sales team will take care of you. So, right, if any part of that chain breaks down, bad customer experience. So the team is constantly interfacing and solving problems together. So I think that's the importance there. Right? You need to be a team player.
Yep.
You need to probably wear hats that maybe don't fall directly under your your jurisdiction, but sometimes that's a problem of the day, and it takes the whole team to kind of problem solve that or improve it or run an experiment on how do we fix things. So a lot of challenges from I guess all of the digital funnel type challenges into real world executional stuff with different types of homes and situations. So yeah,
That's amazing.
things they're learning, right?
Right now, again, in startups, it's never a straight line, right? It's a lot of hard days, just like training for a sport. But I want to understand, what is the toughest that you recall going through, or a phase or a problem that you guys went through in Helios, and how did you guys get over that?
Yeah. So I think we actually went through a pretty there was a rough year. We were figuring out how can we make a solar mortgage a venture business, right? So like you said, refinancing comes with its own complications. Mortgage is not super easy. So it was tough, right? Trying to figure out how do we scale? How do we make the number of solar mortgage installations we do go 20% per month? Very challenging, right? Not something like, not all of our leads are actually qualified. So we have a lot of leads we don't qualify there. So figuring out how we grow that, we actually grew it to a pretty significant milestone. So happy there, but we realized that was always going to have its cap. I guess through that pain, we realized we need to diversify our financial products, right? If our goal is to serve, if our mission is really to serve every single Filipino homeowner, we must change, right? We must be able to have a financing offering for everybody.
That's amazing.
This pivot, that's been kind of my big project this year, in getting in these new options for customers. We're really starting to see and learn now, how do we, offer these new products to people. And so it's an exciting time for us, right? We're attacking a much larger section of the pie.
That is amazing. Now, last question before I let you go. So for those people who are also probably two things, they're probably considering working for a startup because they want to become a startup founder, or they're already in a startup and they're thinking of becoming a founder. Similar to the path that you technically took, what would be your advice if their main objective is to become a founder and the route they took is through working in a startup?
Yeah, I think it's a great way to figure out what it's like the realities of being in a startup and how intense the business can be in terms of pressure to grow, uncertainty. You're moving very, very quickly. You're breaking things, fixing things, and doing it over every single week.
Right.
Everybody loves that. So I think if you're interested in that, right, definitely work in one. I would say always what I tell young people and the people I hire is always don't choose a company or an industry or a particular job. Choose someone, a good mentor. Choose someone who's going to teach you, right? Choose someone who's going to level you up and challenge you and help you acquire the skills you want, especially early in your career, right? I think, you could be in an amazing company and build your resume that way, but if you want to be a founder, it's about how quickly can you learn and what skills you need to win, succeed, fix problems, right? So that would be my advice there. And if you're thinking about becoming a founder, then I think it's kind of like nobody can tell you, right? You have to be the one to make that call. Not for everybody. You've got to speak to the important people in your life and realize, hey, this is a long grind and a war. To figure this. You're in for battles. Do it with a team you love. Do it, I'd say, on a problem you really feel passionate about. I'd say just keep pushing, right? Start small. Start with a very small problem that you want to validate and just start trying. Start trying to sell it. Start trying to build it. Not the play for everyone isn't necessarily, put together a pitch deck and, immediately raise a seed round. There's lots of ways to get there if you want that ability to build a business. So I would say, learn. Learn. I mean, watch podcasts like this, talk to other founders. Typically founders are really, pretty open and willing to share the pain, stories, the battle scars, the lessons learned. So
That is amazing. Thanks so much, Alex, for such an amazing episode. Again, I've never been so convinced and so sold into a startup consultation call. But before that, what's next for you guys in Helios? Invite people over if they want to, again, be part of your team, or they want to get their solar installed just like me. Where do they go and how do they do that?
Yeah, if you are curious on solar, you can always check out our website. Or Facebook, join Helios. On Facebook, joinhelios.com. We've got an amazing sales team that will help you and guide you through it and not push you into something you need to do. Follow us on LinkedIn. We're always hiring, especially I'd say kind of on the growth and fulfillment side of the business. So we always need good marketing talents, good sales talents to help us solve problems. Like, how do we simplify these things for customers? I think it's a big thing we always talk about. Like, how do we, these foreign concepts, how do you make them simple? So, check out our LinkedIn for job posts. Shoot me a message. I'm always willing to kind of have chat with folks anyway.
All right. Thanks, Alex. But before I let you go, follow us on whatever podcast app you're listening to, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts. And we did say some jargon, or again, the links that I told you about earlier is going to be in the show notes on hustleshare.com. If you also want to become one of our premium supporters, please do subscribe at premium.hustleshare.com. Again, Alex, thank you very much.
Thank you so much for having me. I had a lot of fun.
All right. And I'll see you guys in the next episode. Peace.